What do you think about the World Health Organization definition of health? Should we broaden this definition, such as the health is the social, psychological, physical and spiritual well-being?
So the WHO in 1947 had that definition without spirituality, which has continued to remain the definition of health. There's been many bulletins within the WHO that have been published proposing to elaborate it to include the spiritual. The WHO did pass a resolution on palliative care that I was involved with that, as well as many people. And that resolution actually does have the word spiritual in it. So there is somewhere within the WHO Constitution, at least around palliative care, it's there. There's a researcher in Europe, her last name is Hübner, who maybe 3 or 4 years ago, maybe longer, started working on even a very different definition of health, having to do with wellness. So in the societal context of people aging and moving into living with chronic illness, what is the definition of health in that area? And interestingly, she had nothing to do with palliative care, but in looking at these definitions of maybe health is the ability to self-manage, to find meaning and purpose, hence spirituality, though not used explicitly, and to interact with one's world in a full way in spite of disabilities or illness. She then did focus groups in Europe to look at if that were the definition of health in this new context of looking at people who live with chronic illness, not necessarily aging, but also an older population. There were domains that were developed, and no surprise, physical, emotional, social, spiritual, financial, and intellectual. So when she presented, it was delightful meeting with her because coming from very different fields, we landed in the same place. Mm-hmm. So this is a very circuitous answer to your question. That yes, I think health absolutely in WHO should be including a spiritual domain from the palliative perspective, but also her work and many others, just looking at what is health in the context of the reality of our lives. People living with imperfections, with illness, with life stresses, how does one find health? And Hübner's work and her colleagues, this notion of living a life of meaning and purpose and fulfillment, regardless of what is happening to us physically, I think is a beginning place to integrate that.
Latin word salus, it was something more than health only.
Healing.
Healing.
Yeah, healing and exactly in that broader sense. I've been really inspired by all my patients inspire me, every single patient. But I will tell you, there have been there's one patient who is a special needs adult now. She's in her 20s and has cerebral palsy and many other conditions, and she's wheelchair bound. And she lives one of the fullest lives I know. In fact, when I see her on my schedule, for me, I feel like I'm sitting at her feet and learning. That I don't know how much I do for her, but it's amazing what she does for me and for the medical students and residents that are with me. She's a picture of health, complete and total health. Even if you see her in a wheelchair, even with the paralysis, even with the weakness on one side, even with some speech difficulties, she's one of the most brilliant people I have ever encountered. And I can say the same for many of my patients with dementia, where you might be thinking, how can she say that with people who have cognitive impairment? But out of their mouths come the deepest wisdom that is possible. So I think we have to reframe how we look at what is health. We have to reframe that, and that's what healing is. Healing is getting to that place where we can transcend whatever limitations we perceive that we have, either societal or physical or mental or in any way, and continue to have that full spirit that transcends whatever is going on with us. I think that's what the healing is, and that's again a critical role for spirituality and health.
And that is whole person care.
Whole person care, right there. Across the span of illness or health, yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.